Growing up with a growing understanding speech pathology. Conversations about children's development that will support you through your parenting journey.
Hi, I'm Lauren from A Growing Understanding, and I'm excited to share with you that our podcast, Growing Up with a Growing Understanding, is back. It's been a little while since we last recorded, and so much has changed. I look at old photos and I don't even look like the same person. But one thing hasn't changed, and that's our commitment to supporting families of children with communication and feeding difficulties. This time around, we're doing things a little bit differently. Instead of recording in a studio, we'll be recording from our clinics and offices and bringing you conversations with our amazing team. We want this podcast to be a practical, easy to digest resource that parents can listen to on the go while they're juggling all of the things that life throws at them. So whether you are looking for some more information about children's communication and feeding, looking at learning some new strategies, or you may just feel like you would like some more support on this journey, we are here for you. We're excited to share our upcoming episodes, so stay tuned.
Welcome to Growing Up with a Growing Understanding, a podcast from A Growing Understanding, all about supporting families who have children with communication and feeding difficulties. I am delighted to be sharing the microphone with a friend and colleague, Emma Hyde, who is also our Clinical Director. So nice to have you here, Em.
Thank you, Lauren. Good morning.
Good morning. So I want to start off just to ease into our conversation, to be able to share a little bit about you and a little bit about how you fit into our space at A Growing Understanding. So you're our clinical director, but I'd really love to find out about you as a human. I know, but our audience doesn't necessarily know. What was it that prompted you to become a speech pathologist? What's your story?
Oh, okay. It's an interesting one. It's not like a glorified version of how some people got here. Look, I had a lot of preferences back in my end of high school days. And, I was looking at all the allied health options with a dad who's a doctor and my sister's an OT. So really loved the idea of being a PE teacher too. And I was in the Swiss Alps, funnily enough, when preferences were due. And I called my dad, and Dad said to me, "Do you really want to teach high school children?" And I don't know, in about 10 minutes, I decided I didn't and went into an internet cafe in the middle of Switzerland and changed my preferences. And here I am. And look, I
Which
did
is so
do
funny
some...
because I can't imagine you as a PE teacher. Like the idea. So you fit what I think of as a speech pathologist. You're such a great speech pathologist.
Oh,
and so
thank
like the thought of you being a PE teacher just doesn't align.
Isn't
so
right,
I think it was a good choice.
I mean, I did do some more extensive research after I did make that decision to see what I was getting myself in for. And I definitely found my place. It was the right fit for me. I always wanted to work with people. That was a priority for me, and being able to support families. Found the perfect thing, even if it was a rather random way of getting there.
Yeah, love that. And again, for people that don't know you, when you're not at A Growing Understanding, if you're not within our clinics, where would people find you outside of work?
Yeah, so that's a given for anyone who does know me. They'd all answer with the same response, I think, and that would definitely be down at the beach. I'm a sea salt girl all round, and the beach is my happy place. So, you'd find me down at Merewether, probably local to Newcastle, if you live in our area. And you'll find me there through summer, winter, all the seasons. It's just where I belong.
I was going to say it's not even weather dependent. We're very lucky in Newcastle that we have good weather generally all year round. But it doesn't matter all year round. You'll see, we'll see you at the beach. Lastly, I think just to ease into our conversation, and I think why it's a good conversation for you to be having here on the podcast is in your role as the clinical director at A Growing Understanding. What is your role? What do you do?
Yeah.
Because I think the conversation that we're having today is about how we can be supporting families through this speech pathology journey, even before they see a speech pathologist. What is it that we can be doing and sharing? So do you want to share a little bit about what it is to be a clinical director and what your role involves?
Yeah, so my role as the clinical director, as you were just talking about, is to support families through our service. We've got lots of different options between our groups, our intensives, our one-on-one therapy, and my role is in that service delivery to make sure that we are offering a really high standard of care for our families for however they enter our service. I'm also responsible for the team, so supporting our beautiful team of speech pathologists, our client experience officers. I do lots of catch-ups with the team. I'm on the ground working with them to support their needs in being able to, again, offer a really great service for our families.
You're going to love this, Em, because it's completely off the cuff, but we haven't prepared. And I know that's just, again,
that's
our dynamic.
Not untypical.
Like, something that I do just want to bring into this conversation, and I think that this is probably a whole other podcast, so I don't think we'll venture into it too much today, but I just wanted to initially flag something that I know is really important to you is around the diversity and inclusion approach that we are really putting in place at A Growing Understanding. Do you want to touch on that a little bit? Because I think, as I said, it's a whole other podcast episode, but I think in your role as the clinical director, I think that also just speaks to a lot about who you are as a human, and also about the strategic direction that A Growing Understanding is taking. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. So look, something that is really important to us is that we're providing an inclusive space for everyone who walks into our building, no matter who you are. So we do have a membership with Pride in Health and Wellbeing, which we've just been recognised as a gold tier service provider through the Health and Wellbeing Equality Index. We have a reconciliation action plan that we're working through with Reconciliation Australia as well. We're one of few services locally to our area who has a translating and interpreting service for our culturally diverse families as well. So and we're also looking at what we can be doing to put supports in place for people working with disabilities. I don't know if you want to touch more on that, Lauren.
Yeah, so I think on the back of some of the strategic objectives that we're putting in place, we really acknowledge that in our workplace that we've got a number of neurodivergent and other individuals with a range of disabilities. And so we're looking at what we can be doing to be able to support our team. And also then what can we be doing to support the children and families that we work with who have disabilities as well. So I think that there's that flow-on effect for our community. So whatever those accommodations may look like, that can be supporting, as you said, Em, regardless of who you are, that you belong at A Growing Understanding, and it really feels like a safe and inclusive space is something that is really important to both you and I. So I think that just puts a lens over, as I said, who you are as a human. So really grateful for all of the work that you're doing in that space. And I think that then, it just gives context for when we're starting to talk about the services that are available to families. It's just something that makes up who you are and who we are as a service. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Thank you.
So when we were talking about this particular podcast episode, I said to you, often as speech pathologists, like you and I have both had quite a number of years, we won't say how many years, a number of years experience. But when we're out and about and we are catching up with friends and family, if we're at a barbecue somewhere, someone will often say to us, my child, is having some difficulty with such and such. What do you suggest we do? Do you get that a lot?
I get it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just, when you're in that space and it's, something that you're familiar with, people feel really comfortable. And that's what I want to try and, put into people's homes and into their headphones and into their ears, that we are here to support and we want to offer you the same advice that we would offer our own friends and family as part of our community. So what do you say? So if someone says my child is having some difficulties with name a communication and feeding challenge in there, but what's some of the initial advice that you might share to someone?
Yeah, for sure. So often, one of the first things I will ask them is, have you had a hearing assessment? We always want to know what hearing status might be if a child's going to come and see us. So, ticking that one off is always an important one to start with.
Isn't it interesting? Because, like, I know, sorry to cut you off, and
This is how we do it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is how we do it. This is how you and I communicate. We'll talk over the top of each other. So sorry for those that are following along at home. But we have hearing assessments done as newborns. So, like, our babies are tested in Australia at birth, and that tests their hearing levels. What families might find interesting to know, it's something that we know as speech pathologists because we're familiar in this space, but that hearing is really testing at birth when they're doing that hearing assessment. It's testing the nerve and the inner ear, and so that's how they test hearing for younger children. Why is it important for older children who are presenting with communication difficulties? Why is hearing assessments important, and how is that different to the newborn screening that's undertaken?
Yeah, for sure. So every sound that we produce is made at a different frequency. So it's important to know if there's a loss at any hearing frequency. The biggest thing is even if that hearing assessment at birth comes back normal, hearing can change over time as well. So we just want another reading of that to make sure that the hearing's within normal limits for normal communication development to occur. And for those speech sounds to develop, if there is a loss at any frequency, it might be the reason why your child might be having trouble saying certain sounds. So that really gives us good information when we're assessing them and looking at, all the different sounds that they're learning to produce to make sure that that may not be a reason, that they're having difficulty producing it.
And I know from my experience, my son in particular, as soon as he started daycare and as soon as he started going into, daycare, preschool kind of settings, the amount of germs that he was exposed to.
And ear infections
ear infections were the number one thing. So, from 9-10 months of age, he was having recurrent middle ear infections, and they weren't frequent enough for him to be able to have very early ENT consults and having, grommets and, those kind of things put in. But it impacted upon his speech sound development. And that's what we see with children whose hearing may have been appropriate at birth. They've got the structures in place for good hearing. There's lots of factors that can contribute to hearing loss or disruption in hearing, and also variation in hearing skills across time. And illness is a big one, and middle ear infection is a big one that can contribute to that. So having a hearing assessment can be really helpful. And we've got some resources to be able to share with families about where they might be able to access that in their local area, whether they're local to us and our centre or anywhere that they're listening from, how they can link in with some hearing assessments. But it just adds to some of the information that when you do go to see a speech pathologist for the first time, it's one of the questions that we ask, and we want to try and get that bigger picture about what their hearing status is like.
Yeah, for sure. And so you can go and talk to your GP. We don't need a referral from a GP for you to refer to our service, but there are different funding options available for you. So the chronic disease management plan is something that the GP can complete paperwork for you that they then send through to us, and that entitles you to funding through Medicare to cover some of the cost of those first 5 sessions with a service. So going to see your GP in the early stages can be a good option as well to know where to start.
Can I share on that, Em? Like, one of the things that so you and I have both got a history of working in health, right?
We do.
And so one of the things that when you first started working with a growing understanding that I shared with you, and I continue to share with my team and with families, is that when we started a growing understanding, it was about ensuring access to care and being able to provide really high quality services in that private speech pathology space. So even with this podcast, we're wanting to share information about the types of services that are available in our community. But when we're talking about our community, if you're listening and you're not in our local area, we're talking about what services are available generally. So you spoke about families going to see a GP. I think that GPs are a really good first port of call for families to be able to go to be able to voice some of the concerns that they may have regarding communication, feeding, or general development. And your GP can link you in with those appropriate referrals to whoever may be suitable in your area. And you've got choices and options about how to access speech pathology care for what's going to suit you and your family. And like what you said, if you do decide to go down that private speech pathology path, there are some funding options that can support you to be able to navigate and to be able to access the speech pathology service that you're seeking. We have a funding guide on our website, so you can check that out. Again, it references private speech pathology, but we're not here to sell private speech pathology services to you. For us, it's about information sharing and being able to put you on the right path to what speech pathology service is going to suit you and your family. So if you do decide to go down the path of private services, GPs can certainly help you to access a chronic disease management plan and funding to be able to use Medicare to be able to support you in that in the funding towards private speech pathology, because it's expensive. Like, there's there is out of pocket expenses, so it isn't suitable for all families, but you've got to be able to be informed to be able to make the right choice for you and your family. So check out the funding guide if you are listening and you're wondering about what speech pathology services may be suitable for you and your family. And there is also a guide about choosing a speech pathologist if you do decide to go down that path. I raised that because I think it is good for families to know that there are options, that there are different speech pathologists that work in different areas. So for us at A Growing Understanding, we work with children only. So, a speech pathologist can work across the lifespan, but for our service, we only work with children. We are a private service, and so there's some flexibility in terms of how that service is delivered and what we deliver. And so it's about looking at what your needs are as a family and also what your concerns are and whether it's a good fit for you and your family. So I felt like I went on a bit of a rant there, but I do really want to push that point that, ultimately this is what we're wanting to do, is share information and to be able to support families. So yeah, your GP is certainly a really good starting point to be able to go through. I had a side thought
on the GP too, Lauren. The GP is a good point as well if you're needing referrals to other service providers while you wait. So if you do have concerns about more than just your child's communication or feeding development, they can also refer you to a pediatrician or start those processes really early as well. Some of those services sometimes do have wait time, so getting in nice and early and starting that while you're waiting for speech is also another good opportunity at the GP.
Yeah. Yep, love that. Because I think, again, depending on the type of service that you decide to go with, public, private, not-for-profit, and, which service in particular you go with, there may be wait times that are associated with that. So it is really good to try and get those referrals happening and to be able to start thinking about some of the concerns that you may have. So for a family that have, got some minor concerns or some concerns in general, what would you suggest as being some strategies or some information that you would give to these families to support them prior to seeing a speech pathologist?
Yeah, for sure. So it's probably a rather general strategy, what I'm thinking of. I mean, speech, language, and feeding so vast and complex and extensive. But in those early stages, just some good modeling and recasting of speech and language is a really good starting point. So modeling being just modeling language and speech, talking to them about what you're doing, what they're doing, giving
it's sort of
them
like being a sports commentator, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Like when we're talking about modeling, like talking about what's going on in their world around them so that they can, hear the language, hear the speech. Yeah, that's exactly what modeling is that we're talking about, modeling the language that we're wanting for the child. Yeah.
So yeah, recasting is the other strategy that you can use. So if your child's using a word that we typically wouldn't, or they're having trouble using the appropriate word in their utterance, just to recast them with the correct or appropriate word that you would put there. So they're hearing that really good language model and they're learning from that. So if you're recasting them every time, if they're making an error with their grammar, just recast it and say that word to them as you normally would so that they're hearing what that sounds like and getting that feedback loop.
So as an example of that, so something that we might commonly see is, if a child says, I saw the tar, and they're meaning I saw the car. So recasting would be saying, the parent would then say, I saw the car and the car is red. It's a nice looking car, isn't it? And so saying the correct production, or what you're wanting the target production to be, and recasting it back a couple of times. So in that example that I gave, and it might have been hard to hear on the audio, is where the child was making a T for Tom sound instead of a K for car sound. And so being able to say back the correct production or the target production a couple of times in a really meaningful way. We don't want it to feel forced, and there's no expectation that the child needs to produce that. So I think that that's the other thing that I share with families, in this situation of the family barbecue where someone asks about what they should do. I think taking the pressure off yourself as a parent, but also taking the pressure off of your child, that there's no expectation for them to need to say the correct production using the cues that you have got. So I think know that from the outset.
It's not a correction strategy. It's a modeling and recasting strategy. As we said, we don't expect them to get it correct or try again. If they do it again and they get it wrong, that's okay. Just recast them another time.
Yeah, and that modeling and recasting is really powerful. So we use that, quite a lot in speech pathology to support the therapy that we're providing. And that's essentially what our role is as speech pathologists, is to be able to train a child and provide therapy for the child, but also how we can train and support you as the parent to be undertaking that home practice. We know that there's such a high value in families being able to undertake this practice and feedback themselves. So until you've had those specific instructions about what's going to help your child and what you're doing in therapy and what the target is, take the pressure off of yourself. It make your life and your child's life a little bit easier. Just that permission to kind of let that go. It's sort of like the Frozen, let it go. I think that's given some families some things to think about in. So, as I said, we're here to be able to support families, to be able to navigate systems, to be able to access supports for themselves and for their child in anything speech pathology related. I think we've shared a couple of resources that might be helpful for families. So the funding guide and how to choose a speech pathologist for your family. But also there is a modelling and recasting guide. So something written down if you wanted a follow-up on any of that information. There's also some really great information available through Speech Pathology Australia in regards to how to identify if your child may be experiencing difficulties with their communication or feeding. And we've got a whole bunch of downloads on our website as well. So just really encouraging you to reach out with any questions that you've got. We're more than happy to share information either through this platform, through a conversation with us directly, or, in writing across our social media platforms as well. So please reach out to us with any questions. Although we might not be able to specifically talk about your child without having met them, we're here to help, and we want to be able to support as much as possible. Do you have anything else, Em, that you wanted to share or that you wanted to talk through?
No, nothing off the top of my head. Just wanted to reiterate what you just said, that we're always here to help. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out. Always happy to connect with people and offer advice or suggestions of what to do or where to next.
Fab. Thanks so much for jumping on today, Em.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to Growing Up with a Growing Understanding Speech Pathology. We love helping families navigate their parenting concerns and ensuring your child can grow and achieve. Please rate and review wherever you're listening so we can continue to grow together.